Pickleball Central hooked it up, guys. The new Alshon TKO-C and TKO line of paddles release May 4th, and you can take 10% off any of these new paddles using code STSPickleball, specifically at pickleballcentral.com, which is exclusive to my channel. So a huge thanks to Pickleball Central for making this happen for my viewers. So without further ado, let's dig straight into this interview. So what's up? So we got Christian Alshon here. So recently I saw that you won the Pickleball Central Indoor USA Championship. So how did it feel when you won that tournament?
I mean, that's your first tournament win. It's a really big feeling, and I think James Ignatowicz said it best. The monkey's off my back, and that's what it feels like. It feels like like you've had like this weight on you about winning a tournament, and it's not easy. And when you finally do it, you can kind of just like my first training session back from winning that tournament was like so confident, so comfortable. Like it was a big deal.
That's awesome, man. That's so cool. So do you think that the new paddle ended up having sort of any impact on the win, or do you think it was like a hard work or sort of a combination of both, or what are your thoughts there?
Definitely a combination of both. Sure. I mean, I started using this paddle and my game jumped to another level almost immediately. I started doing a lot better. I mean, this paddle, right when I started using it, it's not the same paddle I have now. It was a progression. It took multiple edits, and it wasn't, the first product was not the final product, and it was a process to get to the right paddle because there was a lot of back and forth with paddle tech to make the best paddle.
Gotcha. So I saw you have a recent video on your YouTube channel where you talk about why you chose paddle tech over other brands. Can you talk a little bit about that for everyone?
Yeah, when I knew I was going to be changing paddles, or was most likely sure of that, I was looking at some of the bigger paddle companies, and I narrowed it down to a few of them, and I asked myself, and I was like really sitting with it, and I was like, is it worth a little bit more to use a paddle that you don't love as much? Mm-hmm. And the question I asked myself was, would I pay this much money to use this paddle, to use a better paddle? Like, would I pay this much money per year to use a better paddle? And I asked myself, and I was like, yes. It was like instant. It was just like, yeah, like no doubt, you're gonna make that money back. You're probably gonna make that money back, and you're gonna play better. You probably win more. You're gonna feel better, and it's just it wasn't the easiest decision, but it definitely wasn't the hardest decision.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then so like in that progression of sort of like innovating the paddle and making that paddle better for you specifically, like what were a lot of the things that for you coming from like a tennis background, what were a lot of those things that you kind of implemented into the paddle as far as how you kind of crafted it for your game essentially?
Yeah, I mean I have one here naturally.
Of course.
And some of the biggest things were the grip length, because I mean that's a big deal for being able to get both of my hands on the paddle. Like that's huge. So I know a lot of paddles I've used, I've been like tight for space, and I don't like that. So that was one of the biggest things. The transition from the grip to the paddle face was one of the big ones, like this right here, trying to make this seamless. And as you can see, it's got like a Y transition, so that was it. And then just the paddle shape in general. Those were the main things. I mean, the technology inside of it, that's all paddle tech right there, and they know what they're doing, so I trusted them with that. I mean, I talked to them about it, but ultimately it was more just the surface mods that I helped with.
No, honestly, the paddle feels super nice. So the 12.7 millimeter feels super hot off the face. It's really poppy. Something about that Bantam core definitely does like pack like a pretty intense power, which is really cool. And then the 14.3 millimeter obviously feels a little bit more controlled. The weighting feels really nice on that one. So do you use the 12.7 millimeter specifically like for your game, or do you use both, like one for singles and one for doubles, or what are you doing?
No, I use the same one for both singles and doubles.
Okay.
I don't think it makes sense to use two different paddles. I mean, maybe, but at the same time, if you're trying to master one paddle and then you're going back and forth, you're never really going to master one as well or as much as you could if you go back and forth. You gotta stay with one, and you gotta focus on one, and you gotta master one, I think.
I agree with that.
And well, yeah, and I started with the 14.3 millimeter, and I used that for the first couple months as I was feeling it out. And like you said, the 12.7, it's hot off. It comes off hot. I wasn't ready for that right away. Like, I used both of them, and I was like, this is more power than I can handle right now, because the 14.3 was already a lot of power. So I needed to take some time and figure out the 14.3, and it took me like a month or two to figure that out. And now I'm like, all right, well, I can handle this. There's a lot of power in the sport. I should upgrade to the 12.7, you know, to keep up with some of the competitors. So now I'm using the 12.7.
That makes sense. Yeah. Do you think, like, with everything moving more towards power, like, you pretty much just have to be playing in that sort of spectrum of the game right now to kind of keep up, like, competitively, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, that's where the sport is for this year. I remember at the end of last year, people were saying 2024 is the year of power, and it definitely seems like that. It definitely seems like that. It's tough, man. If you're playing against somebody who has a lot more power than you, you're just at a disadvantage. Like,
sure.
And there are some paddles that are, you know, a lot hotter than others. So you got to do what you can to, like, compete. And what I like about this one is, you know, you have options. Like the 14.3, it's powerful. And it has a ton of control. The 12.7 is way powerful, and you still have control. Yeah. So, I mean, and you just have to learn how to control it, and you got to get there. But the 14.3 is a perfect starting paddle. Yeah. And then if you feel like you're getting beat with speed, then you have the option to go hotter.
Yep, I agree with that 100%. Yeah. So for your personal game, like, what's your personal favorite aspect of pickleball?
My favorite aspect of pickleball as, like, a sport is the shot variety. I mean, there's so many different shots you can hit, and it's crazy. It's unlike any other sport. If I get a backhand on the left side, and when we're all at the net, if I get a backhand and I'm on the left, I can roll that cross court, I can dink it up the line, I can dink it middle, I can speed it up down the line, I can speed it up across the body at the person in front of me, I can speed it up to the right hip of the person across from me, I can speed it up at the left hip behind the person to across adjacent from me. Sure. Like, there's like 7 options for every shot. And that same thing is for so many shots.
100%.
And you just that. There's just nothing else like that where there's so many possibilities. It's awesome.
It's crazy because in pickleball, all of those decisions happen within a very short time frame too. You know what I mean? I mean, you're making that decision, like, really quickly as that ball's coming to you in a very fast pace.
Yeah. I mean, and you mentioned tennis too, that I heard before we cut out a little bit, and how you also have very short amount of time, but you have less options. I mean, tennis, you really got to master a few shots. You've got to, like, master a couple or a few shots, whereas pickleball, there's just so many options that, I mean, mastering pickleball is going to take way longer than mastering tennis.
That makes sense. Yeah, the shot selection is massive in pickleball. So how do you set up your paddle? You know, lead tape wise and your overgrip and stuff. Like, what's your setup look like?
So I get it at it comes at 8 ounces, and what I'll do is I'll put about 0.5 ounces of lead on, and I use very thin lead strips, and I put it from down here at the throat of the paddle, and then I'll go all the way to, like, the top right here. so that the lead is pretty evenly balanced throughout the paddle.
Okay.
But I still keep it on the bottom half rather than the top half, and the bottom half allows for.
And then are you using like 0.5 grams per inch or 1 gram per inch lead tape?
I switch it around. It's definitely it must be 0.5 grams because it's light, it's thin.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So do you have any like specific diet that you follow, like when you're, you know, for your pickleball regimen essentially?
As of like 6 weeks ago, I hired a dietitian to help me out with this. Wow. I had been trying to improve my health on my own for many months, and I was doing well, but you know, it gets to the point where why don't I just find somebody who does like who's like me in pickleball, like who gives everything their craft. Sure. I mean, it makes 100%. Sense. Well, I found somebody a dietitian, and you know, they've got to do a ton of schooling to become a dietitian, and we've been working on building my diet and my nutrition, and it's a huge thing. Right now I'm dairy free, and I just found, because I'm a little sensitive to dairy. I've had gut issues like for the last 5 years, and I've never known what it was, and that's a main reason, a big part of why I hired the dietitian. And we figured out that we figured out by drinking soy milk that I'm allergic to soy.
Okay.
And I never realized that, because like the concentration of soy is usually pretty small when you eat it or drink it or anytime you consume it. Whereas when drinking soy milk, that's like 100% soy. And my throat got puffy. Yeah. And like, yeah. So I mean, it's crazy that I've spent so long without knowing this, and I think it's just when you eat it, when you consume it, and there's just a small percentage of it, it affects me internally. But since I had so much of it, it affected me externally as well as internally. So that was really cool to figure out. So I'm trying to go soy free, and I kid you not, it's one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do. It's so hard. I won't get into it, but it's everything has soy. Yeah,
that's intense, man. Yeah, but that's good. That's cool that you found that out. Like, I think that stuff will impact your game. It'll reduce inflammation and make everything a little bit easier to kind of figure stuff out, you know. Well, so what's your favorite like cheat meal? Like, what's your favorite meal? Like, if you could just have one meal, right? Like, you know, on Earth, what would that be?
Man, what I keep going back to, it's funny because I've had, like, since I found out that I'm soy, I've had this meal like twice in the last few weeks. And it's always like that one cheat meal is fried rice.
Nice.
Like, man, I love fried rice. I mean, P.F. Chang's fried rice. Ooh.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, no, it hits different. And there's soy in there, like, obviously.
Sure.
And there's, yeah.
That's cool, man. So for someone like me who's around kind of that 4.0 mark, you know, 4.0, 4.25 kind of, what would you say are the most important aspects to get to that 5.0 and beyond kind of level? Like what do you think are some of the big tips there?
I mean, I think the cool thing with pickleball is, I mean, maybe any sport,
sure,
but with pickleball is if you're a 4.0, like, you can become a 5.0. Like, that's, like, it's not that far away. You have almost certainly all the necessary, you know, tools or skills to become a 5.0. It's that 3.0 to 4.0 jump that's a little bit harder, where you got to master some of the, like, figure out some of the basics. But once you figure out a lot of those shots to become a 4.0, becoming a 4.0 to a 5.0, it just requires implementing, because you know a lot of what you need to do. Now you just got to be disciplined and hit those right shots at the right times. So that's the difference between, you know, 3.0 to 4.0 is you're still trying to figure out the shots. 4.0 to 5.0 is you got to be smart. That's why that's why like 80-year-old Nancy can take out the young guns like in practice, because she just hit, you know, you're hitting the right shots rather than yeah.
I 100% agree with that. I think that's actually
sorry
a
if
great
there's-
answer. A lot of people are like, well, specifically this
Yeah.
or specifically the transition zone or specifically, but I agree with you. I mean, I think if you're 4.0 plus, you kind of know, you know, and you just have to really start honing in on specific shot selection or this and that. But you have a good grasp of the game. You know what I mean? Like, don't limit yourself mentally and just start playing around and choosing different shot selections and different aspects of the game and just really practicing on those, right? So essentially.
Yeah. I mean, if you have one shot specifically that you're weak at, then I mean then you don't need to ask me what you need to do to be better.
That's a good point.
You know what shot you're weak at.
I love that. It's a very realistic answer. I actually appreciate that. I love that answer. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I dig it. Yeah, so honestly, man, I'm a huge fan of both these paddles. I really like them both. I think the 12.7 is super hot, super poppy. It's really nice paddle. 14.3 has a little bit more control. I love them both, honestly. So I appreciate your time, man. I appreciate you coming on and talking paddles with me. This is something that I love to do. I just love the tech behind pickleball, and I really appreciate you hopping on and spending some time with me. And you know, I'd love to do a play session sometime with you or whatever, and see how bad you whoop my ass. I'm sure it'll be a pretty hard beating, but yeah, man, I really appreciate your time. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, man.
Yeah, of course. Hey, if you're ever in the Boca Del Rey area, hit me up and we'll see if you can help.
Sounds good, man. All right, brother. Have a great rest of your day, okay? Peace, man.
All right, and
All
you.
right, see ya.
Cheers.
That was so much fun. Christian is a good dude and a master of his craft for sure. Make sure to head over to Pickleball Central May 4th and check out the release of the new TKO line of paddles from PaddleTech, and don't forget to use code STS Pickleball for 10% off. Have a freaking wonderful day, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.